You wake up one morning and everything feels the same, but something deep within you knows it isn't. The air has a slight hum to it, the light bends differently on your wall, and for a brief second, you feel as if the world is holding its breath. This is the moment before change, the quiet before the quantum shift. Most people live their entire lives brushing past this moment without noticing it. But for those who do, reality itself begins to bend. For years, you've been told that reality is solid, that things just are the way they are. You've been conditioned to believe that change must take time, that you have to struggle to become who you're meant to be. Yet somewhere within you there's always been a whisper. A knowing that something greater is possible, that maybe, just maybe, the world you see isn't as fixed as it appears. Maybe life is responding to you in ways you've never fully understood. The truth is, every thought you think, every emotion you hold, is sculpting the invisible field around you. Energy doesn't stay still, it listens. It bends, molds, and rearranges itself according to the frequency you embody. You don't observe life happening to you, you're participating in its creation with every heartbeat. The entire universe is an echo chamber of your inner state, mirroring your beliefs, fears, and intentions back to you. But here's the paradox. You've been taught to look outward for proof before believing. You've been trained to trust the seen more than the unseen, the physical more than the energetic. And that's precisely what keeps the old patterns alive. When you chase evidence, you affirm lack. When you cling to control, you vibrate resistance. The harder you push, the more the world reflects your struggle. Yet the moment you begin to soften, the moment you allow stillness, something begins to move beneath the surface. There is a point, invisible yet undeniable, where your perception starts to shift from passive observer to conscious creator. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins quietly. A feeling that time is slowing down. A random coincidence that feels too meaningful to ignore. An inner voice that whispers, "This is not random." You notice that when you think with emotion, the world around you responds with synchronicity. When you decide something deeply enough, doors open in ways you couldn't have planned. And when you stop trying to make it happen, reality seems to rearrange itself effortlessly. This is where reality begins to bend, not because you're learning a trick but because you're remembering a truth. You are not living inside reality, reality is living inside you. The physical world is a reflection of the vibrational one, and that vibration is shaped by your awareness. The more you tune into your inner field, your thoughts, emotions, and energy, the more the outer world begins to reflect that inner calibration. What once felt like coincidence now feels like orchestration. What once felt random now feels intentional. It's not magic. It's alignment. And alignment isn't about forcing positivity or pretending to be spiritual. It's about remembering your natural state before fear, before limitation, before doubt. When you return to that frequency, that childlike wonder, that trust in the unseen, you become the bridge between worlds. You start to feel life as a living energy moving through you and with you instead of against you. You begin to realize that the universe was never separate from you. It was always responding to the quality of your consciousness. If you've ever felt like you're standing at the edge of something you can't quite name, a threshold between the life you know and the life that's waiting, this is it. This is that edge. It's the point where the old self begins to dissolve, and the new self starts to emerge. The part of you that needed proof begins to surrender. The part of you that doubted begins to fade. And the part of you that knows, finally awakens. Reality doesn't bend because you discover a secret formula. It bends because you start to see yourself as the source. Once you stop chasing outcomes and start aligning with presence, everything around you begins to reorganize. The people, the opportunities, even the timing of events, all begin to shift in ways that defy logic but feel undeniably right. This isn't coincidence, it's coherence. You are syncing with the deeper rhythm of existence. So breathe. Slow down. Feel the energy behind the words. Because this moment, right now, is where it all begins. The point where perception softens, resistance releases, and reality itself starts to yield to your awareness. It's not something you force and it's not something you wait for. It's something you allow. When you let go of the illusion that the world is fixed, you begin to witness the truth that has been quietly pulsing beneath it all along. And as that awareness deepens, a question begins to rise within you, a question that will guide the rest of this journey. If reality is not as solid as I've been told, then what else becomes possible once I stop believing in the limits? For most of your life, you've been told that reality is solid, that what you see is what's real. The walls around you, the objects on your desk, the ticking of the clock, all of it feels stable, tangible, predictable. But that sense of solidity is an illusion created by your senses and filtered through your mind. What seems like a stable world is actually a symphony of frequencies, a constantly shifting sea of energy that responds to your perception. Everything you see, touch, or think of as real is simply energy slowed down to a visible vibration. The deeper you look, the less solid it becomes. Science, mysticism, and consciousness all point toward this truth. Quantum physicists discovered long ago that when they tried to observe the smallest particles of existence, electrons, photons, quarks, those particles refused to behave in predictable ways. Sometimes they acted like solid matter, and other times like waves of probability. And here's the most astonishing part. What determined their behavior wasn't an external force, but the act of observation itself. Reality doesn't exist in a fixed form until consciousness interacts with it. Your awareness, your attention, is what collapses infinite possibilities into a single experience, the one you call, my life. That means the world you see isn't a single unchanging truth, it's a projection shaped by your beliefs, expectations, and emotions. Every moment, countless versions of reality exist in potential form, waiting to be chosen. You don't move through time, you move through frequencies, shifting from one frame of reality to another, often without realizing it. When you repeat the same thoughts, emotions, and reactions, you stay anchored in the same pattern. You keep tuning into the same station of reality, mistaking familiarity for truth. The illusion of solidity is comforting, it makes life feel predictable, safe. But it's also what traps most people in cycles of limitation. Because when you believe reality is fixed, you stop experimenting. You stop imagining. You start identifying more with your circumstances than with your consciousness. You look at your bank account, your relationships, your past, and decide, this is just how it is. But in truth, that's only one version of the infinite field. When you identify with the evidence of your current reality, you unknowingly reinforce it, feeding energy into the very pattern you wish to change. You've probably felt glimpses of this bending before, those moments that seem to exist outside logic. Maybe you thought of someone right before they called. Maybe you felt drawn to a place for no reason, only to meet the exact person you needed to meet. Maybe time slowed down when you were in flow, or sped up when you were aligned with joy. These moments are not accidents, they're glimpses of a deeper truth. They reveal how fluid and responsive reality actually is when your energy aligns with clarity rather than resistance. Every emotion you feel, every thought you think, emits a frequency. Fear contracts energy. Doubt scatters it. Gratitude, love, and presence expand it. When your inner state is fragmented, your outer reality reflects confusion and delay. But when your vibration is coherent, when your mind, heart, and energy align, the field around you begins to reorganize itself to match that coherence. You've seen it happen. Opportunities appear, synchronicities multiply, and resistance fades. Life seems to bend in your favor. And yet, because we've been raised in a world obsessed with logic, most people dismiss these moments. The rational mind insists, that's just coincidence. But the deeper intelligence within you, the intuitive, ancient part that feels beyond the intellect, knows it's not random. It knows reality is alive. It knows the energy around you is listening. It knows that thought and matter are not separate things, but different expressions of the same field. When you truly begin to grasp this, everything changes. You stop trying to fix the outer world and start refining your inner one. You stop fighting against circumstances and begin aligning your energy with what you want to experience. You realize that your inner dialogue is a command to the universe. Every "I am" statement sends out a signal that shapes the electromagnetic field around you. The universe doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are. It mirrors your dominant vibration back to you, faithfully, unconditionally, without judgment. The illusion of solid reality begins to dissolve when you start to see cause and effect differently. Most people think the outer world causes the inner feeling, I'll be happy when I get the job, I'll feel loved when I find the right person. But in the quantum sense, it's the opposite. The feeling precedes the event. Emotion is the energetic signature of creation. When you feel abundance before the money arrives, when you embody love before it's reflected back to you, you're tuning your energy to that timeline, and the physical world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match that frequency. Reality, in its truest form, is liquid consciousness, a living mirror. It bends and molds to your perception. The reason it feels unyielding is because of how long you've been holding the same vibration. The longer you think the same thoughts, the deeper the groove becomes in the energetic field, like water carving into stone. That groove becomes your default frequency, and your world becomes a reflection of it. But when you begin to think differently, when you interrupt the pattern with awareness, the water finds a new path, carving a new groove. That's the beginning of transformation. In this light, the purpose of awakening is not to escape reality but to see through it. To realize that what you call real is not a fixed structure but a living system of energy responding to you. You begin to understand why ancient mystics, quantum scientists, and spiritual masters all arrived at the same conclusion, that consciousness is the foundation of all creation. You are not a passive passenger moving through a mechanical universe. You are the universe, aware of itself, expressing through a unique perspective. As you start to unlearn the illusion of solidity, you start to notice subtle shifts. The way your energy influences the tone of a room, the way your thoughts change how people respond to you, the way the world mirrors your self-image in almost uncanny ways. It's both humbling and empowering to realize that reality isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. Every moment is feedback, a reflection of your frequency in physical form. And when you truly see this, not as a concept but as a lived experience, the illusion begins to crack. The edges of your reality start to shimmer. You sense that what once felt rigid is beginning to move. You understand that your life is not a fixed story but an ever-evolving script written in real time by your consciousness. The question is no longer, can I change my reality? The real question becomes, how aligned am I with the version of me who already has? Because once you see through the illusion of solid reality, you stop asking whether reality can bend, and you start realizing it's been bending all along, waiting for you to notice. There is a moment when something subtle, almost imperceptible, begins to happen. A shift that doesn't announce itself with fireworks or sudden miracles, but with silence. It's the moment your internal frequency changes. The world outside doesn't instantly transform, yet everything feels different. You begin to sense that the external no longer holds the same power over you. That, right there, is the point where reality starts to bend. It's not a single event, it's an energetic tipping point. The moment your inner state becomes more dominant than your external circumstances, reality starts to rearrange itself. You might not see the results immediately, but they've already begun forming in the unseen. The universe, which has been patiently echoing your old vibration, now begins to recalibrate to a new one. It's as if existence itself exhales, releasing the dense patterns that once defined your timeline. The truth is, reality doesn't bend when you fight to make it happen. It bends when you stop fighting. When your awareness detaches from the illusion of control and instead tunes into the frequency of trust, your energy harmonizes with the flow of creation. You've probably noticed how, when you chase something, it seems to run from you, but when you let go, when you release the need and move into peace, it often appears without struggle. That's not coincidence. That's coherence. The field around you organizes itself according to the dominant frequency you embody. Imagine reality as an ocean. Most people try to control the tide, to force the waves into shape. But the moment you realize you are not separate from the ocean, you stop fighting it. You start to move with it. The water doesn't resist you anymore because you've become one with its rhythm. That's when it bends, when your energy and the universe's flow become indistinguishable. This bending isn't dramatic. It's quiet, natural, and deeply personal. You might start noticing gentle distortions in your daily life. Strange alignments, repeating numbers, people showing up with uncanny timing, opportunities forming out of nowhere. These aren't signs of something that might happen. They are evidence that your inner field is already shifting. You are tuning into a parallel version of yourself, one that vibrates at a higher level of awareness. Every time you hold that frequency, reality begins to match it more precisely. Think of it like a radio dial. Each frequency broadcasts a different version of reality. Most people stay stuck listening to the same static channel, repeating old beliefs, emotions, and expectations. But the moment you adjust your dial, even slightly, you begin receiving a new broadcast. The world doesn't change, you do, and the world you perceive mirrors that shift. That's why people often say, "My outer world changed the moment I changed how I felt." They're not using metaphors, they're describing the literal mechanics of creation. At this stage, your awareness begins to notice patterns that once felt invisible. You realize your emotional states are not random reactions but energetic choices. Every moment, you can choose the vibration of surrender or the vibration of resistance. When you choose surrender, the feeling of openness, acceptance, peace, you enter resonance with the field of infinite potential. In that resonance, matter reorganizes, probability collapses, and what was once impossible begins to take form. There's something profoundly liberating about realizing that you no longer need to push reality into shape. You start to understand that reality bends naturally around a still mind. Think of a calm lake. When the surface is disturbed by waves of thought, reflection is distorted. But when the water is still, it reflects perfectly. That's how creation works. Your consciousness is the water and the world reflects its surface. When your energy is turbulent, life seems chaotic. When your energy is clear, life mirrors clarity back to you. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing reality to change, it starts to. When you reach emotional neutrality, the space where you no longer measure your worth by external outcomes, you rise above the frequency of duality. Fear, doubt, and control exist only within duality. But the higher you vibrate toward unity consciousness, the more flexible reality becomes. It no longer needs to challenge you because you've already integrated the lesson. You're no longer reacting to the illusion, you're responding from creation. This bending point often feels like a brief disorientation, a quantum fog. Things you once cared about deeply start to lose their pull. Old desires feel irrelevant. People from your past begin to fade, while new ones enter with a sense of déjà vu. Time itself behaves differently. Days stretch or contract depending on your state of presence. You may find yourself thinking of someone moments before they appear or finishing someone's sentence before they speak. These are all signals that your consciousness is synchronizing with the larger field. What's really happening is that your internal frequency is overriding the collective field's density. The world's energy, built on fear, scarcity, and separation, starts to lose its grip on you. You're no longer playing by its rules. You begin to exist in a higher layer of reality where intention manifests faster and feedback is immediate. Here, thought and matter are no longer divided by time. You think, you feel, and the result appears almost instantly. But this level of creation requires humility. The ego often wants to use these principles to control outcomes, to manipulate reality for validation or gain. Yet true bending happens only through surrender, not control. When you release the need to prove your power and instead rest in the knowing that you are one with the source, your energy becomes pure. You stop emitting mixed signals. You become a single coherent vibration, and coherence is what shapes worlds. You might ask, how will I know when reality starts to bend for me? The answer is simple, you'll feel it. Not in your mind but in your body, in your breath, in your heart. The tension that once existed between desire and doubt begins to dissolve. Things begin to unfold with impossible ease. You sense an underlying orchestration in everything, as though life has been waiting for you to notice that it was always working in your favor. This is not imagination. It's resonance. The field of consciousness mirrors the state of being you hold most consistently. The more you embody peace, gratitude, and awareness, the faster reality adjusts to that blueprint. You're no longer at the mercy of external events because you've realized they are extensions of your inner energy. The outer world is no longer something to fix. It becomes a canvas for your evolution. And so, reality bends not when you shout affirmations or force positivity, but when you remember who you are. You are the field observing itself. You are the consciousness shaping form. You are the still point around which the universe spins. When that remembrance anchors fully into your awareness, fear dissolves, time softens, and energy responds instantly. Reality begins to flow like a river following your intention, effortlessly and precisely. The world becomes less about surviving and more about synchronizing, less about chasing and more about allowing. You stop trying to escape your current reality because you realize you are its creator. Every reflection becomes sacred. Every experience becomes communication from the infinite intelligence that flows through you. And in that sacred recognition, you reach the true threshold, the space where matter bows to consciousness, where possibility folds inward to meet awareness. This is the moment reality starts to bend, quietly, majestically, and undeniably. It's not outside of you. It's the space within you that finally remembers. You were never living inside the universe. The universe has always been living inside you. Reality doesn't bend through force, it bends through understanding. The deeper you go into the fabric of awareness, the more you begin to see that reality has never been separate from you. It has always been moving in rhythm with your vibration, responding not to what you say but to what you believe. In this stage of awakening, the outer world begins to feel lighter, more fluid, almost responsive to your state of being. You start to realize that when your inner frequency shifts, the field around you rearranges itself without resistance. This is where you begin living consciously inside the creation field. Every moment becomes a mirror, showing you the alignment or dissonance between your energy and your experiences. When you hold on to fear, life echoes fear back to you. When you rest in trust, life flows in ways that defy logic. You notice how synchronicities appear, the right people, the right opportunities, even perfect timing, not as random coincidences but as reflections of coherence. The universe was never withholding. It was simply waiting for you to match its harmony. Reality begins to bend when you release control. Control is the language of separation. It says, I don't trust the field to carry me. But surrender, real surrender, is not weakness. It's a return to truth. You stop trying to direct every outcome and start aligning with the current that was always moving in your favor. Like a river that doesn't fight its flow, you begin to realize that ease is the natural state of manifestation. The universe speaks most clearly when you are quiet enough to listen. In this space, awareness becomes your compass. You no longer chase external validation. Instead, you listen to the subtle language of your own energy. When something feels heavy, you know it's misaligned. When it feels expansive, you know it's true. This intuitive sensitivity becomes your new navigation system. You don't need to analyze or overthink. Your frequency tells you everything. And then, something remarkable happens. You begin to see energy before it crystallizes into form. You sense outcomes before they occur because they already exist in vibration. You feel yourself standing in multiple timelines. One version of you still doubting, another already living the dream, and you consciously choose which one to energize. You realize that reality doesn't shift through effort, it shifts through focus. Wherever you place your sustained awareness, the universe begins to solidify that vibration into matter. Each choice becomes sacred. Every thought becomes creative. You begin to understand that energy is currency. The more consciously you spend it, the more deliberate your life becomes. This is where responsibility deepens. Not in the sense of burden but in empowerment. You realize that you are the architect of perception, and perception is the blueprint of existence. When you shift perception, you shift worlds. In moments of silence, you can almost feel the field around you responding, a soft hum of recognition as if reality itself is aware of being seen. That's because it is. Consciousness recognizes consciousness. When you observe life without judgment, you are meeting the universe as an equal. You are no longer a subject moving through an objective world. You are awareness dancing with awareness. The mirror bends not because you force it, but because you smile into it with recognition. You begin to move differently in daily life. Instead of reacting to problems, you pause. You breathe. You remember that energy precedes matter. If something feels chaotic on the outside, you know it's an invitation to center within. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But instead, what frequency am I holding right now? That single question shifts everything. It brings the power back where it belongs, inside. Soon the need to prove or control dissolves. You stop trying to convince others of your power because you no longer need external validation. The results become self-evident. Peace replaces anxiety, alignment replaces confusion, and flow replaces force. You notice small signs everywhere, repeating numbers, intuitive nudges, dreams that carry messages. These are not coincidences. They are the universe whispering, you're aligned. Keep going. There's also a softness that comes with mastery. You no longer rush. You no longer fear delays. You understand that the timing of reality is divine. What once felt like stagnation now feels like gestation, energy preparing itself to manifest in perfect sequence. You stop digging up the seeds to check if they've grown. You simply water them with gratitude and trust. And soon, life begins to blossom in ways that your old self couldn't have imagined. This level of awareness changes your relationship with everything. Money, relationships, health, even time. You start to realize that abundance isn't about accumulation, it's about frequency. When you feel abundant, everything that matches that vibration naturally flows toward you. Love works the same way, it doesn't come from searching but from radiating. You become the source of everything you once sought externally. And in this stillness, this complete surrender, reality bends without resistance. You don't need rituals or elaborate affirmations, though they may help at first, because now your state is the ritual. Your presence is the affirmation. You are no longer trying to shift into a new reality, you have become the vibration of it. This is where manifestation transforms into embodiment. You no longer visit high-frequency states, you live there. You no longer wait for signs, you are the sign. Every moment is an expression of the field harmonizing with your consciousness. And that's when you finally understand. Reality bends not because you demand it to, but because you remembered who you are. The illusion of separation fades, and in its place rises a quiet, radiant truth. You are the field itself, aware of its own infinite power to shape, to create, to become. And now, as the journey settles into silence, you begin to feel something subtle yet undeniable. The world hasn't changed, but your perception has. Reality no longer feels rigid, it feels alive, breathing with you. You realize that the point where reality bends was never somewhere outside, it was always within your awareness. The search, the effort, the trying, all of it fades into knowing. Reality responds not to force but to presence. The deeper you align with who you truly are, the more effortlessly life shapes itself around you. You are no longer trying to create, you are simply being, and creation follows. Every breath, every thought, every act of gratitude becomes a ripple in the field, bending existence toward harmony. You no longer chase signs, you embody them. Because the moment you remember your infinite nature, the universe bends in recognition. And that's the truth. Reality starts bending not when you master the external, but when you awaken to the infinite power already within you.